Listen, I understand it's your business, but your business is serving people who are trusting you. Do right by those people by making a proper plan so that even when you're not here, your business continues to serve them.
Hey, Chris, I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
Well, thanks for the invite.
Most certainly. Well, I've known you for so long. I think as long as One IMS has been around, I've known you, and it's definitely an honor to have you as a guest today. Certainly, we just recently had an opportunity to meet again, and that's kind of led to having this conversation today. So, Chris, the people that may not know of you, can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh, for sure. So I am an estate planning probate attorney. We have law offices in the Chicago market, mainly in Rolling Meadows and Elgin are our two main offices. We help people with real estate transactions, small business, business succession, but mainly focusing on estate planning and probate matters.
Makes sense. I think about probably 18 plus years ago when I met you, you were part of a much larger firm and mostly practicing business law. You helped us form our corporation and kind of gave us all the bylaws and everything else. So we go way, way back. So
Yep.
obviously you left that big firm, went down to become solo for a while, and then you went back to start a firm again and started hiring team and paralegals and attorneys and kind of build back and also kind of change the service offerings a little bit too, because you went from like corporate law and litigation and some of those things to now doing obviously the probate and everything else. So can you tell us a little bit about how did that transition come about? Why did you decide to leave a larger firm and kind of go solo?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a great story. As you're aware, my life is really based on my Christian beliefs. And my Christian beliefs have really tailored my professional journey. And back when you and I met, I was at the big firm, and that was really the infinite stages of my faith-based walk. And I was just learning just how the Lord influenced what I did, who I worked with, the decisions I made. And back in 2012, I really felt a calling to leave the firm. I went in-house as an in-house general counsel attorney and at the same time developed a solo practice on the side, kind of like a moonlighting practice. And that journey lasted about 7 years. And then the in-house practice, I kind of exhausted all there was to offer there. And I was back with my solo practice. Honestly, I wanted to go back into the middle sized big firm, but that just wasn't what the Lord had in mind. All the doors closed. I found myself in a position of by myself and said, okay, if this is the direction we're going, I put all of my skills and faith into that was the direction the Lord was giving me. And here we are. And what a transformation it's been as now I do have a firm with quite a cast of characters working for me.
So obviously your faith had a lot to do with your decisions, whether in the business world or in personal life. So can you tell us a little bit about, how much impact your faith had on kind of how you perceive yourself as an attorney? Because a lot of times, when you think of attorney, immediately you have this perception, right? And then how much impact do you think that your faith had on your character and your personality, and especially operating as an attorney?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I appreciate the opportunity even to be able to share that. If you go to my website, nudo.net, right at the forefront, we have our core values and we have our biblical mandate. And I'm faith focused. People ask me, people will say, oh, you're very religious. And no, that's not a good description. And I don't hit people over the head with a Bible either. I am faith focused. I am driven. Just my relationship directly with the Lord is what impacts and drives my decisions. I made a conscious decision back in 2006 that my law practice, my business, the work that I did was going to be all credited to the Lord, that I wasn't going to take credit for my success. The success that I'm credited with really is a direct result of what God has permitted for me in my life. Now, fast
Mhm.
forward that, and anybody who walks through a faith-based lifestyle knows that it's nothing more than a progression, right? And so that was 2006. This is 2024. A lot of years have gone by, and my faith has grown a lot. And
Mhm.
we here at Nudo Law live our faith very purposefully. Again, we're not about converting our clients to our faith. We're not about using our faith to manipulate. But what we are is we're about being authentic in the fact that we're Christ followers and
Hmm.
that we use that integrity and those values and we apply them to take care of our clients. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why we chose to go into estate planning and probate. In
Hmm.
estate planning, it's about caring today for your legacy that the client is leaving for the future, for their children or their family. In probate, it's about the compassion of the fact that you just lost somebody special in your life. And, you know, if you've ever lost even as simple as a pet, you know that it is just a grieving experience, let alone losing a close family member. And that compassionate just through just what God has to offer, we hope through just who we are translates and is a really caring, empathetic experience for the client.
Yeah. So obviously, a lot of us who may be very faith based may not be very publical, especially when it comes to business, right? Like not maybe very much proclaiming any of those in our websites or anything like that. And obviously, there's another school of thought, like you said, right? Like you want to be proclaiming that you have this high level of integrity because of your upbringing, your faith background. You're going to stand for what is right and what is true and all of those things. And some of us kind of try to put that behind and just try to conduct a business and not necessarily kind of commingle. What's your perspective on that? Sometimes there's a fear of maybe losing or missing out, because if you are very public about your faith and who you actually follow, right, that can actually cost you business. So what's kind of your take on it? Obviously you've chosen the other route.
Yeah, and you know, you're right in everything that you said there. And this is kind of what I learned early on when I was with the big firm. They stymied my communication with regard to my faith. I
Mhm.
couldn't put like a Bible verse in my email signature. As a matter of fact, today
Mhm.
I don't even have a Bible verse in my email signature, but that's not for any reason other than my email signature is already too long and I don't want to make it any longer. But a lot of people said that if I bring what they perceive to be religion versus faith, which we know are different, I would be turning people off. And there's a lot of people who believe that. But
Mhm.
my experience is just the opposite. My
Mhm.
experience is the more I just proclaim that Chris Nudo has
Mhm.
faith in what the Bible says with regard to Christ and Christ's role as being Savior. And that's just my belief. It doesn't have to be your belief, although I know it is. But I mean,
Mhm.
anybody who's listening to this, I'm not judging them on their beliefs. I'm only saying this is what Chris Nudo believes. And based on that belief, there are certain principles and integrity, moral code, if you would, based on that, that me as an individual and Nudo Law as a law firm ascribe to. And in those principles, we apply them in taking care of our clients. And so what we have found is that all walks of people come to us. We have an enormous Indian population that we serve, and a number of them are not Christian based. And I
Mhm.
have at times been bold enough to ask them, why did you choose us? And they were very upfront and said, it's because we trust you. And
Mhm.
it is something about the way I represent myself in my faith that makes
Mhm.
us trustworthy. And so this isn't about me judging them for what they believe or they judging me for what I believe. It's just each of us upholding our beliefs and being good to one another.
Yeah, most certainly. And I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who would use the name of God and use the name or religious faith and then don't necessarily live up to that standards and then give all of us a bad reputation in that process too. That has unfortunately been in the reality. So I'm glad that you are kind of living up to your name, Christopher, which is a Christ bearer. And so I'm very appreciative of you doing that. So clearly you've put your faith to practice and you also are an attorney by trade and you're also putting that to practice. But being an attorney, a lot of times, like CPA firms, right? Like their CPA firms are really good at accounting, but they're really poor at marketing or they're poor at selling. And a lot of times that is also the case for law firms in any sort of areas. Like you could even see that with the doctors as well. They're really bad at marketing, so they just go and join a big hospital network, and then they can get patients that way. So can you tell us a little bit about how has your approach been? Obviously, you were a solo, went back and started your own practice, built a pretty sizable team. So how has your approach been from a business standpoint, trying to build it as a business, not like, oh, this is like a lifestyle business?
Yeah, at Nudo Law, we've really taken a much different approach to the practice of law and the building of a law firm than what's been traditionally known. Initially, I relied heavily on the internet. Matter of fact, our firm still does rely very heavily on internet marketing. SEO was very important. We took advantage in the early days with pay-per-click marketing through Google. We don't do any of that anymore, but we do rely a lot on Google's local service area, LSA program. My attitude was I will never know enough people to generate the kind of referral business that I would like to see my firm uh, grow to. And so
Mm-hmm.
I needed to build a practice where I reached out to everybody and was able to go to every neighborhood within the Chicago local market and let them know who Chris Nudo was and what I had to offer. And I needed to convey to them the trustworthiness of who we portray ourselves and who we actually are. And so we took an approach that we want the internet through our website, through our LSA marketing, through the videos that we produce, the testimonials we grab, everything about our persona that you can find on the internet to communicate to our clients who we are. I want a client to know who I am before they even meet me, and that I want them to feel comfortable with me. So that requires us to be very vulnerable, very upfront, and just put ourselves out there for people to appreciate.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, using video is certainly one of the ways to do that because people do make a personal connection by seeing you talk and how you interact and how you conduct yourself. So obviously, every entrepreneur makes some mistakes, and that's just part of human nature. Clearly, you've had multiple different pivots over these years that you've kind of built your practice, right? So can you share with us some of the mistakes you may have made and some lessons learned in the process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Mm-hmm.
I joke around that I have failed my way to success because that is absolutely the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I can just tell you that if you don't try, you won't
Mm-hmm.
succeed. But in your
Mm-hmm.
trying, you will fail. And so I have had at least five different marketing companies just in the last probably 7 years that I've
Mm-hmm.
worked with. And some of those marketing companies are or were phenomenal. I just ended up outgrowing them. Others, the marketing companies, they promised you the world, but they didn't deliver the world. And 6 months into a 1 year contract, you find yourself paying them a lot of money, and they haven't delivered on their promises. And sometimes if it's too good to be true, sometimes it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember one organization where they said, "Send me this money, and we will get these leads and send them to you." Well, I sent them the money, and no
Mm-hmm.
leads showed up, and yeah, my money didn't come back either. So,
Mm-hmm.
my mistakes, I don't credit them as mistakes. I credit them
Mm-hmm.
as just part of the journey. Knowing how to pivot and pivot quickly is very important. We measure everything in measurable analytics and ROI, and which is really funny if you know me, because measuring anything is not a strength of mine. But what is a strength of
Mm-hmm.
mine is hiring people who appreciate those kind of things. Like, don't
Mm-hmm.
ask me to do reports. Don't ask me to do accounting, but ask me if I have the best bookkeeper and accountant, and everybody who knows me knows that to be true. Ask me if I have the greatest KPI reports every month and every week and every month and every quarter, and I will show you amazing reports. But it's
Mm-hmm.
because I get the right people around me who appreciate that stuff and who can do it. And so as I was growing, It was appreciating the people I surrounded myself with. And if you surround yourself
Mhm.
with the right people, you get amazing results.
Yeah, typically entrepreneurs are very visionaries. They know what they want, but they just don't know how to get it unless they have the right people that can actually get it for them. And
Exactly.
I think it's the biggest strength you have is recognizing your weakness, knowing it and admitting it, and actually taking the action of finding the support structure who can bring it for
Right.
you.
And the hardest thing is
So,
stepping away, right? As us
mhm,
being entrepreneurs, we like to hold on to everything really tight. And,
mhm.
it's been a process. So anybody watching this who knows me
Yes.
knows that I didn't just go open handed. It's been a
Mhm.
process, but the longer I'm around, the more free I am to trust the people I have.
Yes, most certainly. So obviously you've definitely talked about some of in that process you've made a lot of good decisions, right? Like those lessons learned, you were making decisions. Is there one particular decision or two that you can point to that says that was one of the best decisions I made as an entrepreneur in building my
And,
practice?
outside of keeping Christ at the center, which,
Hmm.
I don't want to minimize that, but
Hmm.
practical steps in addition to that was I hired a practice manager. Her name is
Hmm.
Tiffany. And Tiffany she comes alongside you and
Hmm.
she supports all the things that I can't do myself that she can do for me. So she helps me with make sure that the people who are doing my social media are doing the posts that they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do them, what the content is. She's on top of making sure that the people answering my phones have the proper skill set to not only be empathetic and understanding to the people who are calling, but also be able to answer questions and convert somebody who's calling in for the first time into a potential client. She's
Hmm.
responsible for, anytime we try a new project, to measure the ROI on that project, so that I don't start something and then 2 months later ask the question, has this been any good? She'll report back to me
Hmm.
2 weeks later, you know what, this project's going well, and as a result, let's continue it, or you know what, now's the time to maybe cut the tie. So anyway, Tiffany was very important. The other one is Martel. Martel is really,
Hmm.
they're both right hands to me. Neither one is a left hand, but Martel is the person who really runs the office for me and does all the bookkeeping. And I like to call her my boss, quite honestly. I don't like to be the boss. I like, I report to her, as I like to joke around. But
Hmm.
the decisions to have these two types of people in my practice who really handle those items that would be otherwise overwhelming for me to do and run the practice, those were two really
Hmm.
top-notch decisions.
Yeah, it definitely takes a level of humility, right? Just recognizing that, hey, these are my weakness, that I need people who are going to do certain things that I'm not built to do. And then, like you said, sometimes even recognizing them somewhat above you than and beneath you. And I think that also kind of gives them some appreciation for your willingness to give them a chance and take some risks on your behalf too. And then sometimes giving them the freedom to make mistakes
Absolutely.
is also
Well, and
important.
and and
Yeah.
my dad said early on when I was a really young dude, probably about the time you and I were working together initially, he said, Chris, these people don't work for you. These
Hmm.
people work with you. And that is
Hmm.
such an important distinction. There is nobody in my firm that isn't an equal with me.
Hmm.
Every employee, whether attorney or staff, or even contract staff in some instances, I consider an equal, because if it's the totality of all of us that make it work,
Hmm.
it requires the whole team. That goofy cliche, there's no I in team. It's a
Hmm.
goofy cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, and I think when you do treat people that way, right, they do bring a level of commitment and ownership to their what they do, and then they take pride in the finished product because it's not they're trying to just follow Chris's rules and guidelines. They're actually trying to aim for the same end result, right?
Absolutely.
That's the goal. So obviously you have to be constantly investing into yourself as an entrepreneur to grow, right? One thing might be just learning about the law and changes that are happening in the legal space, but the other thing is also how can we as an entrepreneur improve and get better at. How are you investing into yourself? What are some of the things that you're doing to proactively get
Yeah,
better?
great question. Three basic things. The first one and the
Hmm.
most recent one, and it's not even fully baked yet, but I'm in the in the process of it, is I have an
Hmm.
organization called C12, actually, where you and I met just most recently. And it's a
Hmm.
Christian peer group organization that, I'm really at the super infant stages of trying to become involved in. As a matter of fact, I'm taking a liberty even by saying I'm involved. That's how early stages of infancy. But even the little
Hmm.
time that I've spent with it has made an impact in my life and helped me merge and continue to merge and hold fast the Christian principles with the business walk. The second is
Hmm.
I belong to a peer group that meets quarterly in around the country, and this peer group is made up of 25 different law firms, very similarly situated as mine, throughout the country,
Hmm.
and that keeps me sharp and keeps me on the cutting edge of really what's going on and keeping our firm ahead of all the other firms in the area. And the third thing
Hmm.
is just staying current with the laws and changes in the estate planning, probate, real estate, and business law areas. That is so important. I never appreciated as a younger attorney, probably because I was all schooled out by going to law school. But now that 30 years has gone by, I appreciate the schooling and the importance of continuing to educate myself and staying on top of it, even to the point where I really appreciate even the new potential laws that are coming out and the people who are trying to make our area of the law better, just even with the improvement of the statutes
Hmm.
and laws and regulations available to us. So those are really the three ways of keeping myself grounded, sharp, and current.
Yeah. Are there any sort of productivity hack that you follow in terms of getting things done or stay focused? Because I know obviously one of our biggest problems as entrepreneurs is there's a lot of things coming at us, right? We have sometimes a lot of fire to put out and a lot of responsibilities. And so how do you stay focused and how do you get stuff
Uh,
done?
so I'd be lying to say that I'm good at what you just outlined. I am not, but I do have a couple productivity hacks that
Hmm.
two that I subscribe to. One is a clean inbox. I mean, I am
Hmm.
a strong proponent that, and a clean inbox is a different definition by everybody's standards. For me, a clean inbox is I don't go home at night unless there's less than 15 action items in my inbox. I
Hmm.
probably get close to 75 to 100 action items a day that I have to take care of. If I can, I don't go home until it's below 15. And then I have a
Hmm.
plan for those 15 in the next 24, 48 hours. That's life hack number one. So,
Hmm.
and included in that is the filing of the stuff that I'm done. Reduce clutter. I can't tell
Hmm.
you, I am not an organized person by nature, but I force myself to be somewhat organized because clutter is a huge distraction. And whether that's clutter in
Hmm.
your inbox or clutter just with paper all over your desk or little post-its or whatever, by reducing clutter, I find myself to be more efficient. Other than
Hmm.
that, I probably need a lot of help still with more life hacks to become even better, but those two help a lot.
Understood. And obviously, there's a lot of technology and innovation happening in the marketplace, and AI definitely has impacted a lot of industry, and certainly the legal space is also is one that's being challenged. Where do you see that's either helping you or affecting your practice and overall the legal industry in the
Yeah.
future?
So I'm not going to really probably touch on the legal industry in the future because I'm probably least equipped
Hmm.
to speak on that. I can tell you where AI
Hmm.
has really impacted us. It's impacted us in two areas. The first area
Hmm.
is clarity. So I can type an email and it's very clear to me. I'm using the language that is natural for me in typing the email, but I have an
Hmm.
AI plugin with my email that reads my email for me and then suggests language that is either more succinct or clearer. And I got to tell you, like in 80, 90% of the time, I take its suggestion because
Hmm.
it just can speak more plainly than your average lawyer who
Hmm.
speaks too much. So that's number one.
Mhm.
That's where I really see AI helping, is just in being clear, concise with our clients. And that would be in, form of some form of email and or correspondent communication. The second
Mhm.
area is in definitions. The old days, you take a phrase or a thought and you define it, and you might get a Webster dictionary or something like that. Today, where AI really
Mhm.
helps our legal profession is I can take a concept such as generation skipping trusts, and which is a very
Mhm.
complex topic, but with AI, within minutes, seconds even, I can produce a slideshow for a client that, in very specific terms that are simple to understand, explain to them the concept of
Mhm.
a generation skipping trust. And so I
Mhm.
see AI just making us more efficient and clearer in our communication.
Can you share what those two tools that you mentioned though?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you remember?
So I use
Mhm.
Grammarly. Grammarly, it's an old plugin. It's been around for a very long time, but they've just adapted AI into their software. And I have, part of my subscription includes access to that AI, and it's literally automatic. And it's not only in my Outlook email, it's on my computer, it's on my phone, it's everywhere. So I get the same level of
Mhm.
AI help in the clarity in what I am communicating and writing on any platform that I'm on. The second one is gamma.app, and
Mhm.
GAMMA.app, I believe. And it's a paid subscription, but it also has a free content portion. And you plug in your concept, and it just
Mhm.
produces the most amazing slideshows in really good English. With honestly, it's very accurate, so needs very little editing. Although I always recommend that you read what anything AI produces, because it's not perfect.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing about as entrepreneurs, right, being not resistant to change when there's technology and innovation happening. A lot of times, as entrepreneurs, sometimes like you said, when you come out of college, you feel like you're so schooled that you don't need any education. But as entrepreneurs too, after 15, 20 years in business, you feel like, oh, I know everything to know about business. I don't need anybody's recommendations, or this is a fad. I'm not going to waste my time researching or learning about it. But I think any entrepreneur who's actually thinking about growing and not staying where they are, right? They certainly need to be very aware of what's happening in the marketplace, because you just
That's
never
right.
know how that can actually impact your business in the long term. So obviously, Chris, I wanted to kind of get a little clarity on, especially as entrepreneurs who are listening to this, right? They are very focused on building. They're focused on building a company, building a wealth, and all of those things. But very rarely that we sit down to think about, well, what could happen tomorrow if something were to happen to me? How am I protecting my assets? How am I protecting my loved ones? How do I prepare for future? So can you speak to our audience a little bit about why they should think about estate planning, why they should think about probate and some of those things that might be things that is inevitable, but they should be prepared for it? Hmm.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. So let's just start simply with a quick definition of what estate planning is. And estate planning is nothing more than a cumulative set of documents that we produce that could include things like a will, a trust, powers of attorney, things of that nature. And those documents are designed to transfer your wealth to the next generation, assuming you have children, or at least the people you love. It's really your legacy and passing it along in the most efficient manner. And that's what estate planning is. And something tied very closely to estate planning with it is business succession. Business succession is taking your business and transferring it to somebody else. And a lot of times for entrepreneurs, that comes when we die. Not every entrepreneur has the blessing of creating a business and then selling it on the open market. What really happens is your business is your passion, it's your love, it's your baby, you've grown it. And the only reason you stop doing it is because you cease to live.
Hmm.
And so I always like to say that estate planning and business succession, they go hand in hand. And the entrepreneur really needs to think about, if I die, is my estate designed and well equipped to take my business and have it survive my loss? And so I spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs making a plan for their business to succeed, maybe to the next generation, maybe to a key employee. it's hard to say. It depends on the entrepreneur, but
Hmm.
understanding the importance of that is something that we take a lot of time and try and help people with.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the saying, right? Failing to plan is planning to fail.
Absolutely.
Sometimes this is actually something they should be planning just as much as they plan the business growth and exit plan and all of those things. And then also, are there any some sort of a mistakes or anything you've seen people made where they failed to plan something like this happens and then they lost everything that they've kind of built up, and then their family or children does not have access to some of those things? Is there any stories or anything you might be able to share?
Oh, well, I mean, I think you just did, right?
Hmm.
I mean, of course, I can't give particulars, but I can
Yeah.
tell you the countless stories where the widow walks in and her husband has passed away.
Hmm.
He owned his business, had maybe one, maybe two employees, but he did it all. He
Hmm.
did the accounting, he did the payroll, he knew the QuickBooks password, he held all the keys to the shop, and now he's gone.
Hmm.
And nobody can get in to do basic things like write a check or
Hmm.
balance the books or access the inventory logs. And it's just, I understand the need for security and
Hmm.
proper protocols to be in place with your business. I also appreciate the fact that, you know what, if you're the only person holding all the keys to the kingdom, then when you're gone, nobody has access and the kingdom's locked out. And
Hmm.
in all of these instances, your customers and your clients and everybody that relies upon you suffers because
Hmm.
you didn't take the time to make a proper plan. I always like to tell my clients, listen, I understand it's your business, but your business is serving people who are trusting you. Do right by those people by making a proper plan so that even when you're not here, your business continues to serve them.
Yeah, it's a business continuity plan as well. It's not just to protect your assets. Obviously, where can people learn more about you and then also the kind of services that you provide? And I also saw you have some resources on the website as well.
Yeah, the so our website is plentiful with lots of resources, lots of knowledge, lots of videos about us. Our website is nudo.net. That's NUDO.net. My last name.net. You can reach us. We're local at 847-737-1800. We do offer free consultations. So I always tell people if you need to know more, set up a time with one of our lawyers. We're happy to sit down with you, teach you about estate planning, probate, business succession, anything that we do. And I have a book, a free download on our website. It's called Estate Planning Without Fear. And it's a quick read, probably an hour and a half read. And it really demystifies the concept of estate planning without any sales pitches. Our goal is not for you to feel pressured in a sale. We want you to feel like you got all the information you need to make a good decision for you and your family.
Makes sense. Obviously, one last question, Chris. Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give the younger Chris Nudo?
um, what a great question. Knowing the Chris Nudo of today, it would be step away from your fear.
Mm,
I know that fear binds us and gets in the way of many things that we don't do. We don't
mm,
do it because we're scared. And the younger Chris Nudo, while he was still very outgoing, hid behind a lot of fears of people, fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of, all the general fears. And if I could speak to that younger Chris Nudo, I'd say, you know what? Live life out loud. Make mistakes. Don't care
mm.
about what people think about you, and just follow the guidance that you're led with. And you know what? Life will turn out great.
Yeah. What a great word and wisdom to kind of end our conversation. Well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your life lesson and wisdom with our audience. Thank you again for joining me today.
Well, thank you for the invitation again.
Perfect.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by One IMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.